I'm Bob Hoban with breaking news update from the country of Mexico, our neighbor to the south, who took some significant action today towards their cannabis reforms that we'll see more of in 2021. Several hours ago, I got messages from our good friend and colleague Lorena Beltran and head of HLG Global, one of our Hoban Law Group attorneys, Luis, and ultimately the Mexican government has issued regulations on their 3-year-old medical marijuana program. And this is something that's different than the adult use legislation that is being discussed, and that there's a deadline to take some action. But the history is somewhat unique. So Mexico leads us today with the enactment of regulations surrounding the medical side of the business. Now, for those of you that don't know, in 2017, former President Peña Nieto of Mexico had issued a mandate that they move forward with medical marijuana legislation. But that legislation created a void where there were no regulations. And in 2019, the Mexican Supreme Court had issued a mandate that the regulatory agencies create medical marijuana rules. Again, all of this is different than the non-medical use discussion we have had and that you've read about in the press, where there are adult use and industrial hemp requirements, also from the Mexican Supreme Court. So the regulations are 3 years overdue, and they're fairly straightforward. If you look at the primary focus is on cultivation. Both for research and for the manufacture of pharmaceutical or pharmacological products. It allows for public and private research, and it provides quality control measures, including good manufacturing practices required for these particular products. And I spoke with a good friend and colleague of ours, Julie Armstrong from Aurelius Data, who was extraordinarily excited about the fact that this requires institutionalized data. In other words, the government is required to keep this medical data going forward in this program. Those that are seeking to a permit to cultivate cannabis for medical purposes within Mexico need to register and apply with the National Service for Agri-Food, Health, Safety, and Quality. Those processes have not yet been issued. This is all fresh and hot off the press. Ultimately, that will create a scenario where there's a national registry of cultivators. Doctors who want to practice cannabis medicine will need to register with another agency within Mexico, the Federal Commission for Protection Against Sanitary Risk. And the medicines that will be distributed through pharmacies. So again, pretty significant progress as it relates to cannabis reform and the regulations behind it. Now, the regulations also specifically refer to patients, and this is what's interesting. Patients either from Mexico or from outside of Mexico are permitted to travel in Mexico with their products. This opens the door for medical cannabis tourism, which is quite a deliberate objective of these regulations, and it mirrors what we saw from some places in Southeast Asia earlier this year, in 2020 that is, where the country of Thailand had issued a medical cannabis regulation that effectively created the opportunities for medical cannabis tourism. So interesting thing to watch. And then of course, at the end of the day, it did create rules for products that could be imported and exported from Mexico under this medical marijuana program. So it's interesting, it's significant, it's the first of many steps that will occur in Mexico this year, as we've covered before. The legislature is required by Supreme Court mandate to move forward to finalize the law in the second quarter of 2021, and we need to move forward on that to get that legislation enacted before the midterm elections that occur this summer in Mexico. This creates a sandwich for the United States, where there are legal nations to the north and legal nations to the south that have enacted forms of commercial regulated cannabis, and with the new political leadership in the United States set to be sworn in on January 20th, we'll see if this puts pressure on the United States federal government to move forward with forms of medical and or adult use regulation and flexibility at the federal level. So the impact remains to be seen, but it is a significant step forward, and we look forward for more great news for the cannabis industry to come out of Mexico, our neighbors to the south. Congratulations.